Morning everybody. So this morning I'm wearing amber. It's foggy, it's a bit chilly, so I'm going to try and do this in one take. Let's see how it goes. The thing I'm going to be talking about this morning is a poll I did last week, which asked a question about what you would do, or if you could only do one thing in your first 100 days as a manager, what would it be? Green, amber, red, or something else? The answers were quite surprising. But before we do that, let's talk about the colours. So we've got the three green behaviours: thinking, communicating, and improving. Those are the things that if you have them in your diary in the right proportion, will take you, your people, and your organisation upwards, make them better. Then there's the amber behaviours: monitoring and directing. There's just two of those. And those are the things that stop your business from going backwards. They manage risk. Then there's red, doing. Morning. Morning again. If I don't say morning again, it look like I've ignored you. I can't have that. So there's red, doing, and there's brown, floating. And if you have those in your diary, then they could take your business, your people, and you backwards, make things worse. Morning. And there's one more. It's blue behaviour. Blue behaviour is the living. That is the look when you're looking after your physical, spiritual, or mental well-being. It's where you're recharging your batteries and looking after yourself. Me time. So. Last week, or maybe just slightly the week before, I created a poll. Now, I'm sorry about this. Everybody seems to be creating polls on LinkedIn at the moment. But it was a real poll. It wasn't there just for clickbait. I was really interested in people's perceptions because I wanted to use it as a precursor to this video and this month's blog when I publish it. Now, the question in the poll was, if you were a manager of a new team, department, or division, and you could only do one thing, okay, and that's the real kicker here. You come in and you can only do one thing. You've only got time for one thing. What's the one thing you would do? Would you spend it on green stuff, vision, strategy, and where you're going? Would you spend it on amber stuff, checking to see that major risks are dealt with? Would you get hands-on in the weeds, which was the red stuff? Or was it something else? Now, the majority of people said vision and strategy, and I get it. I totally get why people went there immediately, because that's kind of what you think the manager is primarily there to do, and you would certainly hope they would be. But that wasn't the question. What ideally would you do? The question was, if you could only do one thing, only had time for one thing, what would it be? The next group of people said they would get hands-on in the weeds. Now, I'm a little bit surprised by that, but in a kind of a exasperated way, but I'm not surprised. I think that's a lot of the challenge that new managers have, is that they struggle to move from being an expert, somebody who is hands-on, to when they become a manager, is taking their hands off and managing people who have their hands on. So I can kind of understand why some managers would feel that they need to be hands-on if they can only do one thing. It's not that one either. Some people said other. And they wouldn't share what they thought, but that's fine. I understand that. But the one that was the least is the right answer, which is amber. Okay. Now I want you to picture something. Let's assume you've come in to run a new team. Okay. And you've only got time for one thing. So you decide you're going to go and do, let's say, the green stuff. You're going to go start thinking about strategy. Oh, where should we go? What should we do? What new systems could we implement? Anything, just thinking about all the new stuff we could do, really, really great. And then about 30 or 40 days in, something falls over. You lose a massive client, or a system falls over, or there's a regulatory breach or a data breach or whatever else it might be. And at that point, everything goes wrong and your time all gets spent going to there to fix that problem or to manage the fixing of that problem. But as you start moving along and you start talking to people about what happened, how has this happened? Obviously, once the problem's been solved, you start investigating, why did it happen? And you start hearing from people, well, we knew it was happening. It's been happening for ages, but nobody would allocate any budget to it. And it was almost like, well, why didn't I know that? Okay. And the point is, you don't know because you don't ask. You don't know it's your job to know that. So if you only have time to do one thing, that's the thing you need to do. You need to go and check in, first of all, with your people. Find out how they are, find out if they're happy, find out what they would change if they had the opportunity. Find out if there are any burning fires. Use the phrase, are there any burning fires that we should fix right now? And you're probably going to have to give them some permission for this. Because most people will think, well, I don't have the authority to do it, or we never get the budget, so there's no point in asking. That's not good enough. As a manager, you need to know, despite having the budget, what needs to be changed, because it's your job to go and lobby for it, especially if the reason for having it is big enough, okay? This is a slightly longer video today, I get it. This is a massively important thing, and I think it is something that we often have a huge misconception about, and the poll tells us that this is true. The majority of people thought that they should just go look at strategy and forget what's going on. That's not good enough, because if it goes wrong, the first people that are going to come to you are the people that hired you and said, why didn't you deal with this? You were hired to manage. Managing is amber behavior. It's making sure things don't go wrong and things don't go backwards. That's what this is. The other thing is, the other reason this is really important is because your strategy is going to be probably made up of some of the things that you find when you do the monitoring. If you find out there are burning fires, if you find out that your people aren't very happy, if you find out there's a hole in your, I don't know, your GDPR strategy, whatever, those are the things that are going to form part of your strategy. How are we going to fix that? How are we going to fill that hole? How are we going to fill that hole? You wouldn't know that if you didn't go and look to see what was going on under the covers. So that's it. The answer to the poll is, if you could only do one thing in your first 100 days, what's the most important thing that you need to get done? And if you have time for more than one thing, what's the first thing you should do? Monitor. Go and find out how your people are, how your systems are, how your department is, how the relationships are, how your clients are. Find out how everything is, and that will inform everything you have to do going forward. And once you've done it, make sure you keep it in your diary to do it on a regular basis. Don't take your eye off the ball. This is the stuff that manages risk. If you have any comments, I would love to hear them. Be interested to see whether this starts any interesting LinkedIn fights, differences of opinion. But if it does, please, I'd love to engage. So in the meantime, have a great day. Have a great week.